Sophie was excited to be babysitting for the Johnsons, a family she had worked for several times before. As she arrived, the parents gave her the usual rundown of the kids' routines and the emergency contact information. Then, they left for the night, leaving Sophie in charge. After dinner, Sophie put the two children to bed and sat down on the couch to relax. She flipped through some of the TV channels, but soon found herself getting sleepy. Just as she was about to doze off, she heard some strange noise coming from outside. It sounded like scratching on the window, and it made her skin crawl. Sophie tried to shake it off and tell herself it was just the wind or a tree branch. But the noise persisted. Eventually, she worked up the courage to investigate. She made her way out to the window and looked out, expecting to see a raccoon or some other animal. But instead, she saw something that chilled her to the bone. There, in the moonlight, was a creature that she had only ever heard of in scary stories. It was a humanoid figure with long claws and pale, almost translucent skin. She had heard of this. It was the Rake. Sophie screamed in terror. The Rake seemed to be staring back at her with its glowing eyes, as if studying her. She could feel its eyes on her, and it made her feel like she was being hunted. What the fuck? Her hand covering her mouth. She was nearly in tears. Suddenly, the Rake turned and scampered away, quickly disappearing into the night. Sophie stood there for a few moments, unsure of what to do next. She didn't want to wake the kids or call the parents, but she didn't feel safe being alone in the house anymore. In the end, Sophie nervously decided to wait it out. She sat on the couch with all the lights on and tried desperately to keep herself awake until the parents returned. When they finally came home, she frantically tried to explain what she had seen, but it all sounded just so unbelievable. After that night, Sophie never babysat for the Johnsons again. I'll bet. But she never forgot her encounter with the Rake, and it left her with a deep sense of unease whenever she was alone in the dark. So, what the hell is the Rake? The Rake is a horrendous creature of legend and folklore that has captivated people's imaginations for years. With its creepy and haunting presence, it's become one of the most notorious monsters in the world of horror. In this episode, we'll explore the origins of the Rake, the downright shocking description of it, the horrifying sightings that have been reported, and some possible explanations for it. We'll take a deep dive into some of the most chilling encounters with the Rake, and what we can learn from these terrifying experiences. This mysterious creature has been the subject of countless tales of horror and speculation, with many believing it to be a supernatural entity that preys on unsuspecting victims in the dead of the night, like a vampire. So, get ready to be creeped the fuck out as we uncover the truth about the Rake. Are you ready for this freaky-ass journey? All right, let's get it on. The Rake. This damn thing freaked me the fuck out the first time I saw it on video. I've never seen anything like it. Truly twisted. The best way to describe it is it's a humanoid looking creature with pale white skin and no hair. Ew. So like one of those hairless cats. It usually moves around on all fours, although it's been known to stand upright. Its body is thin and elongated with a hunched posture. It looks like a dead person that runs like a dog. It's completely nude, but doesn't have anything swinging or girly bits. So I guess it's non-binary. How progressive. It has solid, dead black eyes. However, they glow yellow when the light hits them. The Rake's hands and feet are huge with long claws. Its mouth is overly large with sharp teeth. This thing makes a distinct screeching sound when startled or threatened. That shit freaks me out. Even though the Rake has been spotted in some pretty nasty places, the creature has never been reported to have an odor. It has superhuman speed, strength, agility, and able to traverse very difficult terrain in an instant. The origin of the Rake supposedly began as a creepypasta character in 2005. I'll tell you why I said supposedly a little later on. According to the lore, an anonymous user posted an idea for a creepy monster on 4chan's B-board, inviting others to contribute details for physical attributes and habits to help make a new monster. Suddenly, information began pouring in from all over the country, along with many people claiming to have actually seen one. Declared sightings of the monster occurred as early as 2003. Reported encounters with the curious yet frightening creature began cropping up in northeastern America. However, a mysterious media blackout on the subject began. As a result, urban legend has it that there was little to no known information on the Rake until around 2006, when victims began collaborating to research the creature. So it got censored for 3 years? Where the hell did I put my tinfoil hat? They surprisingly discovered close to 24 documents with dates ranging across centuries, all describing similar encounters with the Rake. Some of the evidence included a self-ending note from 1964, a journal entry translated from Spanish dated 1880, and a mariner's log from 1691. This is why I earlier said supposedly it began as a creepypasta character in 2005. The reasons for the Rake's name vary, depending on who you talk to. Some say it's in reference to an Old English term meaning to scrape. Some accounts describe their encounter with the creature with a sound that resembles something being scraped or raked across the ground. Others say it pertains to its oversized claw-like hands that resemble a rake. I guess Wolverine was already taken? So basically, the name derives from its hands or the noise made with its hands. It's said that those who witness the Rake develop mental and physical illness, leading them to eventually turn up missing or worse. Given all the reports, it appears that the Rake may have a connection to death itself. You think? The key to surviving an encounter with the Rake is staying aware of your surroundings and arming yourself with the knowledge of the telltale signs. Along with a fully loaded 12 gauge, bird-like screeching, a white shadow moving around close to the ground, and those glowing yellow eyes are dead giveaways. Pun intended. The Rake does have a weakness: light. It frequents dark caves and forests and can't stand bright light in its eyes. Also, loud noises have been said to frighten it away. So bring lots of fireworks. Lots. There are accounts of it being a shapeshifter, changing into the likeness of a large canine-like creature or a black shadow. Some even say it can teleport. It reproduces similarly to the way the alien reproduced in the movie Alien. Remember that? It opens the host's mouth and releases some gooey amoeba-like protozoa by French kissing the host. It's a sloppy kisser. After exchanging fluids, the elongated cylindrical protozoa moves into the host as the creature grasps around the mouth to ensure its smooth, rapid movement into the esophagus downward. The Rake then releases its grip on the host with the single-cell organism nesting inside. The gestation period is both lengthy and horrific. It's not a worm parasite, but a living pupa that evolves into a fully developed humanoid. The strange parasite is nourished and fed by the host. Once fully developed, it releases itself from the host as the Rake. Here's Johnny! As I mentioned earlier, the first account of the Rake was in a mariner's log in 1691. This is the log entry. He came to me in my slumber. From the foot of my bed, I felt his presence. He took all that was mine. We must set sail for England. We shall not venture again to these waters at the behest of the Rake. So, basically, after the mariner arrived in the New World, he was visited by this creature while he slept, and the Rake told him to go back to England, or else. Well, that's pretty fucking rude. Another reference to the Rake was made in a Spanish journal entry in 1880. It reads, I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. Well, that's redundant. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. It seems the writer has undergone an extremely frightening experience and is now haunted by the memory of it. They feel traumatized and unable to rest peacefully as they keep seeing the terrifying image of this creature in their mind's eye. The entity's eyes have a profound impact on the writer. Additionally, the writer mentions the sensation of the creature's wet hand, which suggests a physical encounter with the entity. Overall, the passage conveys a sense of deep horror and lingering fear. Why is its hand wet? Nonetheless, most sightings have occurred from 2003 to present. Here are a few of the more creepier ones. The most well-known sighting was provided by a witness in March 2006. The story begins with a woman waking her husband up early in the morning. As she sat up to go to the bathroom, she saw what seemed to be a naked and incredibly pale man, or possibly even a large hairless dog, at the foot of the bed and gasped. The husband curled up when he saw the figure. Well, he's about fucking useless. After a few moments of this, in one fast motion, the rake scurried to the husband's side of the bed and stared at him for a moment. Seconds later, the creature ran into the children's room. Moments after, it fled, covered in blood, as the couple approached the room. It left behind the mangled body of their daughter. Her last words were, "Here's the rake. Time to go rake hunting, baby." The husband rushed the daughter to the hospital, but accidentally drove into a nearby lake and drowned with his daughter inside. Several months after this horrible event, the woman began researching the creature she now identified as the rake. Through her research, she noticed a pattern of repeated visits in the reports she read. Based on this, she began recording audio in her bedroom each night and listening to the tapes during the day to find out if the rake had revisited her. At the start of the third week, she heard the first signs of a visit in the form of a shrill voice that she immediately recognized. Her mother-in-law? She did not know where she had heard it, but regardless, she knew the sound. She noted that it shook her so much that she couldn't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. The woman was later found dead on her floor. In 2009, a man reported that as he fell asleep in his living room, he began to hear weird slapping sounds. Someone making that ass clap. I hid my head under the blanket and stayed as still as possible. What are you, 5 years old, man? I could see a faint silhouette through the fabric. It looked like a hairless dog with a warped body and long, distorted arms. The creature walked across the floor and crawled straight out of sight. I could only assume it had gone up the steps. I didn't sleep at all. I held still and refused to allow myself to move until dawn. My mother had come down the steps, confused and a bit aggravated. Oh, so he still lives with Mommy. She had asked me to come upstairs and look at the wall. The wall had been covered with long scratches. The distance between the marks was huge. The hands must have been at least 6 inches wide, like Freddy Krueger. We moved within the following weeks, and it wasn't until 4 years ago that I heard of the rake. In 2010, the witness and 2 friends decided to check out some haunted stuff out in the country in Effingham, Illinois. They live about 30 minutes away. This was a typical weekend night driving out to the cemetery to respectfully explore. They were told the Caspar Cemetery, deep in the woods, surrounded by caves outside of Effingham, was a really good place for a rake. The night began. They started towards Effingham and then headed to the country. It's about 1 or 2 a.m., so it's dark. She sees something with yellow glowing eyes off to the side of the road, just past the ditch in the headlights. Too short to be a deer, but too big to be a possum or a raccoon. As they got closer, it got clearer. They realized that what they were looking at is skinny, hairless, and gray. Human-like, but definitely not human. It was a crazy as hell looking thing. It was crouched down. Its arms were incredibly long, and it looked like it could have been 7 foot tall or bigger standing. She felt herself get cold, her heart race, and the hair standing on the back of her neck. She whispered, "What the fuck?" And then her friend Harley in the back seat shouted, "What the fuck is that?" Complete shock and terror set in, and she couldn't make a sound. She just stared at it. By the time they were right in front of it, passing it, it just watched them drive by. It slinked back into the dark. Then they all started screaming, literally freaking the hell out. She was convinced it was a demon for months, but still doubted herself even seeing it. She thought her mind was playing tricks on her. They didn't even make it to Casbar that night. They went straight home. She couldn't sleep that night. 6 months later, she's at a different friend's house and she gets a text from her cousin. It was a trail cam picture. She went cold once more. The hair on the back of her neck stood up like before. She was seeing this thing again. She knew they weren't crazy. There was something to this. She now knew for sure that her mind wasn't playing tricks on her that night. In 2015, a former police officer tells of his sighting of the ghoulish creature. "My wife and I were returning from San Antonio, Texas on a Sunday night, sometime around May or June. My wife had fallen asleep, and so I turned up the radio and drove south along I-35 into Laredo. As we approached the north side of town, I turned the cruise control off and dropped her down from 65 to 60 to negotiate the curve under the railroad bridge that crossed the interstate. I was in the right-hand lane as I came close to the bridge. That's when I spotted what at first looked like a homeless guy, completely naked, scuttling along the embankment of the road. He was skinny and pale-skinned, and his arms looked emaciated. As I passed him, I had that creepy feeling that something about this person was all wrong. The way he moved, as well as the way his arms and legs were more animalistic than human. Caveman. With 26 years in law enforcement, I thought about stopping and going back to see what this guy was doing. However, with my wife along and it was close to midnight, I just kept going, figuring the guy was just drunk. I told my wife about what I'd seen when we arrived at our home. She thought it sounded like some drunken guy living under the bridge. I wouldn't be surprised. I looked at images on the internet that are reported to be of the Rake, and sure enough, that is what I saw. The creature was parallel on the road, so I never saw its face or eyes, but the body shape was as close to the drawings as I care to get. Every time I approach that railroad bridge, I slow down and take a second look. But so far, I've only seen it the one time. There are several possible explanations for the sightings of the Rake. One, and the most popular, is that they are hoaxes or pranks, where folks dress up in costumes or manipulate images to create the appearance of the creature. That may explain a few, but definitely not all of them. Another is that the sightings may be the result of psychological factors, such as anxiety, stress, or hallucinations caused by different mental illnesses. Man, you'd have to be pretty fucking stressed out to see that kind of shit. The sightings could also be explained by sleep paralysis, a condition where a person is unable to move or speak while falling asleep or waking up. Sleep paralysis can sometimes be accompanied by vivid hallucinations, which could include seeing the Rake. Going a little further down the rabbit hole, which I love to do, some people believe that the Rake is a type of mutant canine that has not been recognized by science. Maybe even a mutated dogman. Others say the Rake is a creature that came from another planet or a different dimension via teleportation. That one's my favorite. The Rake is a creature that has gained notoriety in modern folklore and has been linked with some pretty terrifying encounters and sightings. While some say there is no scientific evidence to support the existence of the Rake, try telling that to the multitude of people who have witnessed the Rake firsthand, and that it's just your imagination and it's not real. I'll bet you don't get a positive response. The stories and eyewitness reports surrounding this creature continue to capture the horror of many and continue to this day. The Rake, like Bigfoot, lake monsters, and werewolves, has been videoed. Pictures have been captured. Long, wide scratch marks have been identified in conjunction with the sightings. I mean, short of a dead body, one captured in a trap, or a live one-on-one interview, the Rake has been proven real. Hell, the thousands of witness reports all reporting the exact same description, that's proof enough for me. It's entirely possible that creatures thought to be fictional actually turn out to be real. For example, the Komodo dragon is a giant lizard that was once widely thought to be nothing more than a mythical creature for many years. It wasn't until 1912 that the first Komodo dragon was officially discovered by Western scientists. Today, the Komodo dragon is recognized as the largest lizard in the world and is native to the islands of Indonesia. For centuries, sailors reported sightings of enormous sea creatures that were completely dismissed as tall tales. However, in the late 19th century, scientists began to find evidence of a real-life giant squid, which can reach lengths of up to 43 feet. It wasn't until 2004 that the first images of a live giant squid were captured on camera. It's the Kraken! The Megalodon, a prehistoric shark that could grow up to 60 feet in length, was once thought to be nothing more than a legend. However, In the late 19th century, scientists began to uncover the fossil evidence of a massive shark, which supposedly went extinct millions of years ago. And the cherry on top, many scientists believe it's still alive to this day. I wouldn't doubt it. The ocean's a pretty big fucking place. Just because it recently crawled onto the scene doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't have to have hundreds of years of tales to give it more credence. New critters are discovered almost daily with no backstory at all. So whether you believe in the rake or not, it's not going away. Either in stories or eyewitness accounts, I have a feeling you're going to hear about this monster for a long time to come. The question is, are you going to be ready when it's confirmed a reality?